Thanks, Melissa. And that's a really hard one to follow up. So that was awesome, but you just made my life hard. Okay. How many people have heard of a fish called a taimen? Couple hands. Taimen are the world's largest trout species. This is a fish that can grow to 7 feet long and over 200 pounds. It's kind of hard to imagine how big a 200-pound fish is, so I'm going to give some context. We're familiar with Chinook salmon, king salmon, right? Big prize fish. The biggest king salmon ever caught was 97 pounds. And actually, king salmon and taimen coexist in Kamchatka. And when the adult salmon swim up the river to breed, they are eaten by taimen. So this is a really big fish. And they're found only in 3 countries: Russia, Mongolia, and China. In China, basically every population of taimen has been driven to extinction. Anywhere where taimen and humans co-occur, it's really bad for the taimen. But to be completely honest with you, I had never heard of a taimen until about last July. As Melissa mentioned, I study freshwater fish in Central Africa, and that's pretty far from the taimen's range. But I had been paired up with Zeb Hogan, the host of National Geographic's Monster Fish, for a mentorship program through National Geographic. And National Geographic gives us $2,000 and says, go do something cool. And so we're daydreaming, right? It's Cambodia, Gabon, Mongolia. Where are we going to go? How are we going to use this money? And we don't know what we're going to do yet. We separate, and I go off to Gabon, and I'm sampling fish about a month later in the lagoon of Igela on the southern border of Gabon with Congo. And I check my email, and I've got something in my inbox from Zeb Hogan, and it says, Mongolia, ? That's an awesome email to get, let me just tell you. And it says basically, hey Joe, we're putting on an expedition. We want to sample fish. We need to get fin clips for genetic analyses, and we want to tag fish for a mark recapture study. There's one more spot for an assistant helper or whatever. They made up some title, and it's going to cost you $2,000. So I said, awesome. That's great. Everything's lining up, right? Wrong. I'm in Gabon, and I'm going to have to fly from Gabon directly to Mongolia. And you can imagine that the clothing that you're going to wear in Mongolia is a little different than what you're wearing in Gabon. And the fishing equipment, obviously, is completely different. So I say, okay, Zeb, I'm super happy to go. Can you bring me clothing and fishing gear? And I got to buying a plane ticket. Now, I don't know if anyone ever has bought a plane ticket from Gabon to Mongolia. The route was absolutely absurd. So, ready? Libreville, Lilongwe, Blantyre, Johannesburg, Seoul, Ulaanbaatar. Right? Jet lag does not describe the way you feel when you arrive in that airport. And there are no big aloha, they don't put a lei on you when you arrive in Mongolia. But I did meet with the rest of the team there, and Zeb Hogan hands me a bunch of clothing, albeit 2 sizes too large and as puffy as possible. And also extremely vibrant colors. I don't know why he chose highlighter orange and highlighter blue and highlighter green. Every photograph, it's like, whoa, that dude. He looks like the Michelin Man went into a paint store and went crazy. So that was me. At least that was warm, right? But getting to Ulaanbaatar, you're still really far from where the taimen are. We were actually going to go up to the border with Russia. We were going to go, it's a 15-hour drive to get from the capital city to where we were going to go fish. Thankfully, Zeb Hogan hooks it up and says, we've got some special transport, don't worry. The next morning, we wake up, drive back to the airport, but we don't go in the public entrance. We go in the military entrance. Now, I may be wrong, but it looked to me like the Mongolian Air Force literally has 1 helicopter, and that was the vehicle we were taking to get to where we were sampling. The whole Mongolian Air Force was there. There were so many rounds of salutes and things, and here we are, a bunch of fishing bums with our stuff and all of our gear. And honestly, flying in a helicopter has always been on my bucket list, but I never expected it to be an old hand-me-down Soviet helicopter that was older than I was and the size of a school bus. And we packed our 15-person crew in there and had 4 pilots and all of our gear, and it was like, wow, there's still elbow room. And this thing, when you're trying to get off the ground, it's like the whole thing's shaking. There's a really loud noise, and you finally get off the ground, and you get up into the air, and it's beautiful. You're driving over the Mongolian steppe, huge, incredible vistas, sweeping things. And the drone of the engines is deafening. It is absolutely freezing in the helicopter. And I don't know what it was, but something was rattling inside of there. So it's like, you got this horrible buzzing sound just blasting your eardrums the whole time. So you fly across the country of Mongolia, and you finally drop the helicopter down in the River Valley. And this is like an incredibly remote river system that flows into Lake Baikal, the world's largest lake system. Really isolated, really pristine. And you get out of the helicopter, you're a little shaken up, but you're greeted by these hills and valleys painted gold with the fall colors of large trees, just the most beautiful color, and rivers that are broad and wide and crystal clear, and you're just imagining these 200-pound trout swimming around in them. But no fishing. We had arrived too late on the first day. So you pack up camp, and you get ready, and you start dreaming about the next day of fishing, right? So day 1, you're all geared up. And me and Zeb were like, okay, we got to check some boxes for National Geographic, right? So we get together, and we do a lot of video crap, and we fly drones around, and we do the mentorship thing, and hang out with the film crew, kind of. And we mess around in the shallow water. We do some fishing for grayling and lennox, but we don't even fish for taimen. Day 1 passes. Day 2, finally going to actually target taimen. And taimen fishing is very different from any other fly fishing I've ever done. You're using 10-weight rods and 40-pound tippet. You're using 6-inch streamers with 2 huge hooks on them, or you're using floating flies that are patterned to look like mice. You're casting these huge, heavy flies, and it's really difficult. So the first day, I basically spent all day casting about 20 feet and not having any chance to catch a taimen. And by the end of the day, my hands are all blistered up, and I've not caught a fish. That's 2 days gone, right? Day 3, my casting's getting a little better. In Mongolia, you double haul cast, so it's pretty sophisticated. I'm getting a little better. Still no fish, but by the end of day 3, my hands are just absolutely bloody. All the blisters are ripped open. What are you gonna do? You're gonna fish through it, of course. Day 4, I wake up, and there is 2 feet of snow outside of our yurt. It's gone from 65 and partly cloudy to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And now I'm like, okay, I'm really happy to be the Michelin Man now, because we are definitely fishing today. And so you load up the boats just like the day before, and you go out fishing. Now, when it's this cold, your line freezes, and the guides on your rod freeze. So like every time you cast, you have to break off ice off of your rod so that it doesn't cut through the line when you actually hook into a taimen. We fish all day in the pouring snow. This blizzard is whipping you side to side, and no fish. Again, no bites that day. The next day, same thing. Really windy. And when you're whipping around a big fly and the wind's blowing it side to side, it can get dangerous. And so you'd be casting, and whap, and it would be a fly that's just hit you in the back, right? Or on the back of the head, or, Now I was the Michelin Man with a bunch of holes in me. Thankfully, one of my friends was like, well, Joe, you got to learn the duck and chuck. So you cast, and then you duck, and you chuck it up and over your head. So my casting was getting better, but I still had no fish. Now, it's morning of day 6, and we've only got 7 days before we head back out. And I'm starting to think, holy crap, I came all the way from Africa to Mongolia, and I'm not even going to touch a taimen. And we go out, and it's a beautiful day. It's a little bit warmer, and we're fishing, and nothing. We eat lunch, and I'm really just starting to think, well, crap, at least it's beautiful. At least I've visited Mongolia. I checked the helicopter off my bucket list. I'm just trying to justify the fact that I haven't caught any fish. And right after lunch, the first cast, I have a tap on my line, and I pull, and there's no fish there. And I missed it. And I'm like, oh, wow. This is even worse than not having any action at all. We fished the rest of the day in the sun setting. And, at this point, everybody on the team's like, okay, Joe really needs a fish. We're going to put him on the best side of the boat. He's going to cast right into the best part of the hole every single time, and we're hoping he gets one. Casting, sun's going down. Minutes are passing by, and suddenly you feel this little tap on your line, and you wait, and you pull, and you hit home, and you know that there's a big fish on the end of your line. And I'm pulling this fish, and everybody on the party's screaming. They're like, Joe, don't mess around, get that fish in the boat. You got to get that fish into a net before you celebrate, right? Because this is a hard fish to catch. This is a rare fish. So ripping this fish, and we get it in, and suddenly all the color comes back into the world. The skies are blue, and the water's cold, but it's awesome. And you clip that fin, and you put a tag in that fish, and hold it in the water, and you let it swim away. And watching that fish swim away, it makes me have goosebumps just thinking about it right now. And if you ever ask me how big that taimen I caught was, it was about this big. Thank you very much.